Welcome everybody back to What Do You Hunt? Episode 13, take two. For those of you who couldn't hear me for the last several minutes, while I wasn't paying attention, everybody telling me that my mic was muted. I wanted to thank our friends, Lords of the Longbox, for the last episode that we did, coming on and hanging out with us and talking about what do they hunt. Great episode, lots of solid views, a really good time. And I'm not going to go through the whole spiel that I just did. I'm just going to get to the meat and potatoes. Welcome, Longbox Love Affair. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well tonight. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
I'm glad to have you guys on. Actually, all of you. Again, we're gonna knock the preamble. We also have Comic Mag Musings and Magic Lasso. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it. Excited to be here.
For sure.
And one thing I definitely want to say. So I've been watching Longbox for a very long time, as I'm sure everybody else has, who's been around the YouTube comic community for a while. And I have seen a ton of Magic Lasso and Comic Mag Musings in the chats on just dozens of videos. Everybody's channel. You guys are just always around. And when you guys do videos, you're always bringing great stuff out, right? And you definitely bring the stuff that I enjoy, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and even some of the modern stuff. But it's a pleasure to have all three of you on here because I really respect your guys' collecting styles and the things that you go after. So to get this started, we'll do kind of a round robin a little bit, but I wanted to find out at what point did you guys kind of narrow in on specifically the kind of books that you like to collect, right? Because everybody kind of goes through evolutions in their collecting, right? You start off, picking up certain books, and then you expand out, and then you shrink down. But when did it really kind of dawn on you, like where you wanted to focus your collective attentions to? And we'll start with Longbox. How are you?
Good. That's an interesting question. I wasn't expecting that question because my tastes have evolved over time. I started collecting comics around 1990, 1991. I fondly remember the death of Superman. I remember the Jim Lee #1 issues of X-Men. That was my era, and so I often come back to that. That collecting. Those artists at that time are ones that I've always appreciated. But I think everything gets just sort of ebbs and flows. So I stopped collecting for a time, and then in the 2000s I started up again, and I just took everything in. I collected everything, DC, Marvel, making up for lost time, and I was very unfocused. But I really came back to the books I loved as a kid: X-Men, Spider-Man. Those are the ones that I really focused on finishing those sets and being a completionist about. Especially once you're older, you're making a little bit more money, so you can pay for the bigger books. I was able to buy a giant size X-Men that was completely in ruins, but I bought it back in 2004 for about maybe $90 or $80, but almost detached cover, and that time that was big dollars for me. So it really kind of goes back to where I started collecting, and I grew up loving X-Men and Spider-Man. I grew up loving Jim Lee's art style, Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson, a lot of the comics guys.
Yeah,
and that sort of stuck with me. Even though I'm more Silver Age now, or at least trying to be older comic oriented, Silver, Bronze books I couldn't afford before.
Right.
I did what I could.
Very cool. That's excellent. That's exactly what we're trying to find out is like what kind of what is it that it really kind of gets us interested into going back out there and looking for more books and trying to build those collections out. How about you, Bill?
I think I'm still trying to kind of focus, as Longbox Love Affair alluded to. I think as you get older and as you grow in the hobby, I think inevitably some of your tastes change or start shifting at least. I'd say I started reading in the late 70s. So Bronze has always had a special place for me because of that. And probably in the early 90s, I just set down a list of silver and bronze that I wanted to get 1 through 20. Or if the series ended before 20, then whatever that was. And I just kind of slowly plugged away at that. And I've been doing that for ever since, whenever I could afford something. And so I would follow auctions. Gosh, I've followed hundreds and hundreds over the years. And I would buy undervalued things and then sell them on consignment later on to try to build up some money to purchase something that I did want. But I'd say within the last 5 years, I still want to tackle most of those titles. I've only completed a couple, but I've shifted, I think, a little bit into EC, Pre-Code Horror, and the Warren magazines. I'd say those coupled with the silver and bronze that I was looking for, that's kind of where I'm searching. I do get moderns. If I can get a modern for $1 or less, I'll pick it up. But usually it's if I'm getting moderns or if I go out and get something that is copper or modern, it's probably because I'll end up selling it later to put it towards something that I'd rather have.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've been trying to build my Superman run, and like I won't spend more than $1 on a Superman book. And it's not that I don't, like it, but it's like, you've got Adventures of Superman, Action Comics, right. Superman Volume 1, Volume 2. There's Man of Steel. There's so many titles. It's like Spider-Man. Like I'll do the same thing with Spider-Man. I just won't spend the money on it on the filler issues, right? Because they're prolific, right? There's tons of them everywhere. It was very printed, and one of the things I always found interesting about the Bronze Age, since you brought it up, and those shorter runs, is that there were so many bronze titles that never made it out of the Bronze Age, right? They just and I always wondered what was the reason behind that? Why didn't they last, right? Nova, Miss Marvel, Luke Cage, I think was probably the only one that really kind of lasted, but they had to evolve and blend in with another character in order to keep that steam up. But yeah, there's so many.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of experimentation, right? At that point, trying to figure out something that's going to work. And I think that in some cases, maybe they worked in a trial, like a Spotlight or Future or something like that. Yeah. And so they figured they'd spin it out into its own series. But they had a lot different criteria for success back then. You could sell 200, 300,000 books a month, and you weren't doing terribly well. And so I think there was a quicker plug, whereas now, those books would last for years if they maintain those types of sales.
I can appreciate that.
Well, I think we also have to mention, too, for those that aren't familiar on the DC side, the DC implosion really affected that. And for someone who's never, if you don't know what the DC implosion is, Google that when the show gets done and read about what happened and how that really affected DC Comics and the titles at the time.
Oh, that's a very good point. Since we're on you, let's continue, Lasso. What your answer to that question? Where are you focusing through?
Sure. Before I answer that, I just want to thank you, Jimmy, for creating this opportunity. Comic Mag Musings and we see each other in the chat all of the time, so it's nice to be on a stream with him. Absolutely. And Longbox Love Affair is one of my 3 channels that influenced me to have a channel. A couple of years ago, I would, if I had a bad day at work, I would look forward to coming home and watching his channel. I never thought I would have my own channel at that time. And there's so many things that I learned and so many covers that I had never seen before until I saw them on his channel. So this is such a huge treat for me to be on a show with Longbox Love Affair. So thank you for creating that opportunity.
Absolutely. Like my two, the two that got me, kind of into it was Reggie Collects and Alex the Comic Hoarder. And I found Longbox through Alex. So,
But to answer your question, I've been a comic book collector since I was a little kid. And, instantly I gravitated towards the character of Wonder Woman. And I wanted to get anything and everything that had Wonder Woman in it. But I was buying other titles as well. I mean, pretty much Marvel and DC, as Comic Mag Musings talked about, the Bronze Age. That definitely is my era. Although I certainly have an appreciation for the Silver Age, and even more so in the last decade, I've gotten a big appreciation for the Golden Age. But I was buying Marvel and DC, anything that just kind of tripped my trigger, I would pick up. And then, as Longbox mentioned, I had a period too where I stopped collecting. But when I got back into it, which was 20 some years ago, I stayed so focused on just Wonder Woman. And I want to complete the Wonder Woman run. That seemed like such an impossible goal. And the original goal I had set as a child was to get issue 106 on up. And the reason that I chose 106 was because the Overstreet Price Guide, which I would memorize every year, told me that 105 was scarce. And I figured I would never find that comic book nor have enough money to purchase it if I could. So I will collect 106 on up. Now, last year I completed that goal of 106 on up, but before I completed that goal, I ended up getting a 105. So I've revised that goal a little bit. And in the last 2 or 3 years, and I really blame this on my addiction to CLZ. I love that app so much to catalog my comic books, but now I'm not as Wonder Woman focused. I am spread out trying to fill in the runs of the books that I have, even big titles like Avengers or X-Men or something like that, but smaller stuff too. Like I just completed Dazzler and She-Hulk and books like that. But pretty much if it's from the Bronze Age, I will enjoy the story.
Well, as we mentioned, you can find plenty of short runs in the Bronze Age to collect. Sure. It's not as big an undertaking as 106 to current. And yeah. To that point, I mean, that is not easy anyway. I mean, yes, 105 may be scarce, but finding any Wonder Woman books in the Silver Age is difficult, right? If I come across one, I pick it up because I never see them out there.
Well, back in the day when, as a youth, being a young collector and getting to go to the comic store to buy back issues, I love the back issues. They had stuff from maybe the 200s on up. But anything before then was just, anytime you would go to a comic show or ask anyone, don't have Wonder Womans. They didn't sell well. They're not out there. Now, after the success of the first movie a couple years ago, you started seeing them a little bit more around, but definitely with a bigger price tag. But after I completed that 106 on up, I thought, well, I could set, I never thought I'd have a 105. So let's set another unrealistic goal. Wonder Woman in the Silver Age started with 98. And I thought, well, if I do 98 on up, so I only have to go 98 through 105, and I have a couple of those issues already, I could have her entire Silver Age on up. And I'm 3 books away from accomplishing that as of tonight.
That's cool. Yeah. No, and I remember seeing the video when you got the 98, which was just it was a very emotional video.
It was.
And it was just seeing that passion for what you were collecting. It was moving. It really was.
Comic books should not make you ugly cry. But that one did.
Right.
But another thing too, I jumped back to watching Longbox's videos. I mean, I would get so invested in what you're collecting. Like when you went after that Spider-Man #1 and you accomplished that was like a victory for me too. I was so happy for you that happened for you. And you had no idea who I wasn't commenting on your videos. We had never interacted, but I'm sitting here and I'm rooting you on. And that was so exciting for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, these grails, I mean, we as collectors get so invested in this and we all collect for different reasons. I collect to be a completionist. I collect for story. I collect for first appearance. I just, you're passionate about it for different reasons. And I get mad when I see other collectors who are just not passionate about it. It's like, why are you in this hobby? Are you here to make a buck? And that's one way to look at it. But I started comic books because of the stories, and it just takes you away and to for all of us that were kid collectors, and then now as adults to be able to get the books that we never thought we could ever touch. And Lasso, to what you said about the price guide, yes, we looked at those price guides and looked at those pictures of those books that were so out of our range. I remember seeing Fantastic Four 48. It's got the Watcher doing his hand thing. It's the first appearance of Silver Surfer and Galactus. That was always in the price guide, black and white. And I was like, I want that book, but I'll never, ever get it because it was at the time maybe $200 or whatever. But on a $5 allowance, you can't,
something else that the younger generation will never understand about that price guide, that's how much that book was going to cost anywhere that year. meaning there was no eBay back then. So if the book said it was $24, which was a lot more expensive back then than it is now, you know that regardless of whatever store you went to, it pretty much was going to be $24. You knew that was your budget for that book.
Yeah. And I mean, there was no market change on it, right? You know, for another year because there was no competition, right? I mean, unless there was 2 or 3 stores in the same town that had the book, right? Which was rare ever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bounce to this chat and give them a chance to say hello. We've got Carlito Classico, again, good friend of mine, because that was awesome, man. Thank you very much. Fuchsia's in the chat. Jeff Schultz, also from Chicago. Comics for Thomas, how are you, sir? I skip all the comments about my mic being off. Copy 801. Let's see. We got a lot of people just jumped in. We got Captain Comics. Thank you, sir, for stopping by.
Ahoy, Captain.
So, funny story while I'm going through this. I used to work at this data center downtown Chicago, and it had there was 2 lower floors, basically 2 sides where the door would open up. And I'm traveling in the elevator with one of the guys I work with, and he goes, "Can you believe this elevator's a pirate?" I go, "What do you mean?" And the door opens up, and it says 1R. I'm just like. So every time I see Captain Comics with it, I can't stop thinking about the pirate elevator. Sorry, dad jokes. What can I tell you? Chris Barrett's here. TJ the Slab Dragon. William Smallwood. Alex the Comic Hoarder. There's our friend.
Yep.
Says FF48 was my I'll never get that book as well. Yep. Carlito Lasso, when you got that video, when you got that Wonder Woman book, was emotional. It absolutely was. It 100% was.
Yeah.
And North Garden Comics, 16 people watching in the video in the chat live here. Thank you all for stopping by. So let's move to a little something a little bit more specific, and we'll start with Bill. What specific books, and this kind of tails off of the conversation we were just having. What specific books can you remember were ones you'd look at and go, "There's no chance I'm ever going to get that," and you now have in your collection?
Okay, that's a key qualifier there.
Yeah, because you could be like, "There's tons of them."
right. Which ones did I look at and say? I'd say maybe. I mean, I don't have a lot of big books. I'm not necessarily a key collector. It's just if in that 1 through 20 there happens to be a key, then I may or may not get. So maybe a Iron Man #1, or a Captain America 100. Trying to think. Maybe a Marvel Spotlight #5, but it's really bad shape. But that's probably one that I said I'd never get. So that'd probably be about it, and maybe Crime Suspense #22, which that one I don't have.
Oh, you don't have that?
That one I don't have. So that would probably be the biggest one that right now I'm after that I may or may not get. But of the ones I have, it would probably be those 3. I don't have a whole lot of keys or big books.
All right, fair enough. How about you, Longbox?
Well, I think the obvious answer for anyone who's seen my videos is X-Men 1, Spider-Man 1. I mean, those are, I completed both of those runs. Actually, the X-Men run I completed, but then I realized I'm missing 14. And that's thanks to me being on Go Collect videos with Alex. I realized, I don't have that.
I remember that. That was what you're like, I can't believe I don't have this book.
I thought I put a pin in that collection. Now I have to go back. Yeah, so those are books that, I mean, anything Silver Age, even Bronze Age, I never thought I would ever own it. I mean, hell, as a kid, I never thought I would own the first appearance of Cable, New Mutants 87. So it was really anything older that I just felt was so unobtainable, because as you start collecting, And you look at all the, like, if we take X-Men, I started collecting around X-Men 281. So before that, you have 280 issues to collect as a kid. And you're like, I'm never going to get these. I can't afford that.
I actually said that about X-Men at one point. I was like, I'm never going to be able to get this. And somebody goes, well, you can start with these, and just brings up this trunk load of, I'm like, oh man, are you kidding? Yeah. And it was like, all right, I guess I will do it.
Yeah. I mean, I one of my first big lots I bought on eBay back in college was a lot of Mark Silvestri X-Men books, and just never had them before. So I think anything older was sort of a far reach for me. I just couldn't imagine ever having it. And now the book that's in my radar is Amazing Fantasy 15. That's I probably, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably would have had that already. But I'm not going to overextend myself too much in this uncertain economy at this point. I'm extending myself in other ways, I guess. But eventually it'll happen. But just that's the next one that I never thought I would have. I still don't have it. I'll get it one day.
Right on. And Lasso, your comments on that.
So, obviously the Wonder Woman books that I talked about before, but outside of that title, the first one that instantly came to mind was X-Men 101. And I'm such a huge Phoenix fan, Jean Grey Phoenix fan. And I always knew that was her first appearance. But back when I was a kid, that was a $20 to $25 comic book. And that was a lot of money back then. I mean, that was a couple months of allowance, And my grandmother ended up buying me a copy for Christmas one year.
Wow.
And to this day, if someone would say to me, I mean, it's probably in fine condition, I'd say, I know I saw the price tag on it. I think it was $22 she spent, plus the shipping to get it shipped here. And now the fact that she's gone, you couldn't offer me, I mean, you could offer me a 9/8, a signed copy, a page of original art to go with it, but I'd have to give up that specific copy. Wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So that book means so much to me. But outside of that, I'm still excited. There's books that I never even thought I'd see with my own eyes, even if I don't own them. The first time I ever was in a room and there was a Fantastic Four #1, that almost blew my mind. It wasn't even mine, but just the fact that I was there in a room within arm shot of FF #1, that was huge to me.
That is cool. And I love your point about, Jean Grey and your grandma buying that for you. I have to ask, though, you're talking about when you were younger and she had to have it shipped. Where did you buy it from?
Back then, what you would do is, because I live in a small town, and there is no fast food or stoplights in this town. So there is no comic book store. There's not a hospital. There's nothing. Back then, what you would have to do is you would write to whatever comic book store you might happen to have an address for, usually the ones that advertised in the Overstreet Price Guide.
Yeah.
And you would write to them and say, do you have any of these comic books and what's the price? Like a little kid would do, because you are a little kid. And then you would mail that letter off and they would write you back and say, here's the books we have. Here's how much they cost. Then you go, okay, here's my money order. I want this, this, and this. And then you send that back to them. And then they turn around and she knew that I had inquired about an X-Men 101, and I couldn't afford it. It was $20-some. I couldn't afford that back then. But she went ahead and bought it from them and had it shipped to her.
And depending on where you live and your economic situation, I mean, $27 could have been a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Yeah.
It was. So, but just the fact that she would do that because she knew that meant so much to me.
Right.
That feeling is to me will always be worth more than the book is, even though I love that book and I still do. It's
a great story. I love that.
Absolutely. So let's dovetail off of that question. And Fuchsia is absolutely right. I mean, you never know what's going to come across your path, when you're out there. What is it that that kind of drives you? Like when you go out, and you're hunting for books, right? And wherever you do it, right? I mean, obviously the last year has told us we can buy books anywhere, right? But if you're out at a con or a comic store or even shopping online, what is it that's kind of propelling you to to want to keep getting more stuff? I mean, is it a I'm not going to speculate. Just like your feelings on where that comes from. And let's start with Magic Lasso.
Sure. For me, it's that COZ app. Ever since I put that app on a couple years ago, there's something about there. That's my second biggest addiction to actually, after getting the books, is putting them in that app. And the more I can put in one setting, the better I feel. And another thing too, for those that aren't familiar with the app, you can look at the top of your screen and it will say like Justice League. You have issue 101 through 108, and then 110 through 115. Well, if you get that 109, then you connect it from that beginning to the end. And I love connecting those together. That is the stupidest thing, but I love it. And right now I'm at about 4,800 books on my CLZ. So with the majority of them being Bronze Age.
Very cool. Bill.
I think it's, first of all, a shout out to my nemesis, the Jackson Roy Kirk. He has joined the chat. Jackson, how are you?
Talking about, okay.
Yeah. We tease one another. He's a really good guy, really, really knowledgeable in our community. Guy knows everything, just about every comic book. So for me, I guess it for several different reasons, right? Sometimes it might be a cover buy with a couple of the modern variants, or more specifically for some of the pre-code horror. In other instances, it might be I really like the story or I really like the character. But those are the things that drive me to keep purchasing comic books. At some point, there needs to be some sort of end game or organization where I move some of these out because it's bursting at the seams. But if I see something on OfferUp or something like that I know is a good deal, something that I can sell for a profit or something later, that might spur me to do that, because then I can then allocate those resources for something that I am truly interested in.
We would think that end game would be like retirement, but if anybody's watched ETA Nick, I think we all know that retirement just adds a whole nother level.
Yeah, ETA Nick's great. He's such a sweetheart too, isn't he?
Yeah.
I love him, but he's a feisty one, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, he's got a message for haters. What can I do?
Yeah.
Longbox, what drives you? What propels you to go out and get more books?
So I used to be a completionist, and I just don't have the time or the energy to be a completionist anymore with some series. So I'm really picking and choosing what comes into my collection. And sometimes there's impulse buys. Sometimes it's purely the art on the cover. Sometimes it's a variant cover. More often lately, it's me trying to get some of the key Silver Age books that are out there before they just become completely unobtainable.
Cranking up in price, yeah.
Yeah. Everything is jumping too much right now. And I'm actually debating whether I just hang up the wallet for a little bit and wait, because some of the ones I want are really skyrocketing. And then I just feel fortunate I got some of the other ones before they jumped. I love it. For anyone who maybe has seen some of my videos, I love finding books that other people don't have. Books that you don't see normally in the long boxes when you're hunting. So even if it's something I don't really collect, like hardcore, but I might tangentially collect some of it. If I see an issue that I've never seen before and I know it might be a little harder to find, if it's a good price, I'll pick it up. And I like just having those books that are harder to find. So over the summer, I bought a whole lot of Something Is Killing the Children books. And I really was diehard into the various printings of those. And I'm so glad I picked them up when I did, because now they've like quadrupled. Maybe those are my Amazing Fantasy 15 one day. Maybe I just get those graded and get them sold. But yeah, so it's whatever strikes my eye, but I'm also, just trying to not be going crazy. So some of the people some of the dealers at cons are like, why are you buying more? What are you looking for? And I was like, I'm very specific. I know what I want. I'm not going to be pulling stacks and stacks usually from your boxes, because I don't have the space or the energy. I'm really looking for very specific things these days.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I really can. Man Cave joined us, and so did DS.
Hey, Man Cave.
Fuchsia has
this man cave of which you speak.
Yeah. He's a man who regrets his name.
It can be misinterpreted. He's a good fella. He's on Cover Slingers with me each Saturday on the Gray Man's channel.
I got to check that. I never catch that show. I've got to go.
Captain Comics is on it too. A couple of good fellows, Salty Sea Dogs, both of them.
Yeah. I'm going to take this next question from the chat because it's a great question, so I'm going to steal it. So North Garden Comics. So the Longbox Love Affair said something earlier that triggered a question. Keys aside, when you complete a big run on a book, do you call it done or do you start looking for upgrade copies? And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I have actually a handwritten book of all the my OCD sometimes just gets way out of the way. And, written down every issue that I'm missing, right, and space it properly. Yep, I know it's weird, but I make a mark next to a book. Like if I get a copy that I know is not collection worthy, like I get that space filler, but I make a little mark next to it. I don't completely cross it off, that like, okay, you know what, I've got it, but I need a better copy. Yep. So we'll go around the panel. We'll start with Lasso.
For the most part, I usually, when I'm purchasing, I'm keeping in mind that I just want to get it now and not have to get it again. So yeah. I'm keeping that in mind. And I've passed on some books that I've even had a hard time finding and going, I remember going, I just never find this book, but I just don't like the price or the condition that it's in for this price, and passing on it. And then 3 or 4 months later, ended up getting the book in a nicer shape and usually for a better price. Mm-hmm. So overall, I kind of keep that in mind when I'm adding to the collection so I don't have to replace. Now, there are a few books that I have childhood copies of that I do need to upgrade, but none of them are expensive books at all. I mean, we're talking books that you can find for $5 or under somewhere. So, and those are just from the fact that as a kid, we're talking like when I was like 5 or 6, and I just loved them so much, I literally wore them out. So I have been replacing them. I'm not against it if I find something at a good price, even if I have it to an upgraded copy, but it hasn't been the general practice or the general rule that I've applied to. One book for sure that I have, it's in a little bit lower grade that, I'll probably never get the opportunity to upgrade because even, I don't know, it's the first appearance of Black Widow. What is that? Tales of Suspense 54?
52.
62, I'm sorry.
52.
I have that, and mine's not. It's not a horrible copy, but it definitely, there's nicer copies. And I just don't know that if that situation presented itself, if I wouldn't think, well, I could use that money instead to get something I don't have. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of torn a little bit there, but overall, no, I haven't upgraded a lot, but that is a fantastic question.
Bill, Comic Bank Musings.
So for me, I guess I'm not like a Boy Who Had 7 9.8 collector.
White pages.
For the ones I do collect, I'm a big slabby guy, so they'll be in slabs. If I can get a reader, I'll do that too. But it's usually for bronze and silver 9.2 or higher. If I can't get it, I just don't want it. And for Golden Age, it'll be 4.5 or higher, and those are kind of the thresholds that I set. So if I get one, let's say a Nova number 3, 9.4, and I see a 9.6 that's at a good value, yes, I'll pick it up and sell the lower ones. So I'll upgrade that way. Raw, yeah. I really don't upgrade the raw ones. Okay.
Yeah, I can't not do it, right? It's like I have criteria, I'm not mad. I'm not, 9.8 white pages, but, like I have criteria in certain ages, but it's like, I started looking at Golden Age recently, and it's like you have to throw that out.
Yeah, and that's what I realized.
Whatever ratty, crap piece of copy, you can get. So
yeah, I've been seeing can I really do it with a 3.0 or a 3.5? Maybe I can't afford any higher, or maybe I'll never see it again. So at some point, I'll have to cross that threshold. I haven't yet.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Longbox.
So. No grade, low grade is better than no grade, right?
Yeah.
At least in my mind. So I never
love comics.
What was that?
We love comics. That's his saying.
Yeah. So I never collected for grade. So I have a whole bunch of issues that are kind of, tattered or what have you. And I don't really care as long as, if I have a complete set, I really, I want the complete set. But now so let's take Spider-Man. So I have this one right here, Spider-Man 50, but it's got, a little tear in the cover.
Pretty cool, yeah.
I'd love to get a nicer one of that. It's a nice copy. Is it high on my list to spend the money to get a nicer copy at this point? Not necessarily. Some of the keys, if I feel like I can find a better copy, I'll do my best to upgrade. I did that with the first Wolverine. I did that with the first Punisher, and those were just happy accidents. I stumbled upon good deals, and I jumped at it. But most often than not, once I get it, I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their way about it. I mean, I have a Tales of Suspense 52, and it is, I kid you not. I mean, like, the covers are split. It's just, shredded from the spine. Cover's been restapled on, and those staples are rusted. I mean, it's in bad shape. And I'm like, I could probably press this out, but it's still not going to be that good, And I'm like, from a investment perspective, that's the part from me that kind of takes hold. It's like, okay, you know what? I really do want a nicer copy of this. So I will eventually get a nicer copy, but I've got my, I've got that filler, right? I got that connection on CLZ, right, Lasso? Where it's like, I don't have that hole anymore.
Yep.
We had another one. Here we go. What's a run you started collecting that you weren't sure about at first, but it ended up really surprising you and you love it? That's a good question, Carlito. You know what? I'll let anybody jump in on that one.
I need time to think.
Sleepwalker.
Sleepwalker? That surprised you that it was good or bad?
Well, actually, I started collecting Sleepwalker when I was a kid. And talk about books us thinking we'll never own in our life. As a kid, I never thought I'd own Sleepwalker #1. But years later, I went back and bought the run on eBay, and I was actually surprised at how bad it was. Like, I mean, I liked the character as a kid. It was nostalgic. I guess you could say the same for Darkhawk.
Yeah,
Darkhawk.
I don't know that any have really surprised me. I think because I mainly collected things that decided to collect things that I'd already read the runs on, so I was pretty happy with them. I guess surprised maybe in the sense that years later, a character may have fallen out of favor, or you reread the story perhaps, and you're like, well, now that I'm a bit older and see things through maybe a different prism, I don't quite enjoy the character or the stories as much. That may have happened once or twice.
Yeah.
I think my answer is I was buying, and this is so typically me. I would be the only person to come on the show and give you an answer like this. I was buying Dazzler, and I mean, she's got the white disco outfit. She's fighting Dr. Doom. She's hanging with Galactus, and I'm into it.
Right,
and then,
way out of her weight class, right?
Yeah. And then there came this point in the comic where she didn't wear that costume anymore, and the creative team changed. And
when she went to the mini jacket and the mohawk kind of thing?
Yeah. And I was like, at that time, I was like, I ain't buying this anymore. This sucks. Well, last year, I'm like, I want to finish this run of this. And honestly, Dazzler books aren't that easy to find either, especially the later ones. I don't think it was a high print run. But I did get these books, and then I started rereading everything. And then I found all those early issues that I loved and admired so much sucked. And all those later issues that I didn't want anything to do with were fantastic.
Writing changed, or
yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah,
even she got that Marvel graphic novel issue number 12 with the Jim Shooter story about Dazzler the movie and what happened there, and it was really good. So I'm really glad that I went back and completed that and found a new perspective on that.
It is hard to read the older stuff. Like, it's such a different style. And, I did try to do that with some of the books that I loved in my collection from years and years ago. And I was like, wow, this is very dated. It's a lot of words, which I appreciate. But, nowadays, the art tells the story more so than the words.
It's definitely a companion.
Yeah.
go ahead.
The book that was the hardest for me, era-wise, date-wise, era-wise with the language, is the original Teen Titans run. That's that stuff from the 60s. Of course, I wasn't alive then, but I watched the Brady Bunch and I knew Groovy and stuff like that. But some of the stuff that they throw out in that book, and they constantly call Donna Troy Wonder Chick, and that's Groovy Wonder Chick, and they snap their fingers, and I'm like, oh boy.
But you read Dazzler, man. You should be up on this.
Should have been, but I guess my desire was to be more at Studio 54 than it was to be back in the 60s and in the platforms and the bell bottoms. But I'm getting pretty close to completing that Teen Titans Volume 1. Maybe about a dozen or so books, and none of them are big keys that I need.
That's another one that I found is very difficult to really kind of circle the issues on. I mean, I go in there and nobody has them. Just
now,
nobody
Steve,
has them.
I remember you saying that, and I'm having actually a different effect. When I go, I see them lots of places. So I need to get your list.
Because we don't live far.
I need to get your list and start taking care of that for you. So, but yeah, I got maybe about a dozen or so issues left to get, and nothing key, nothing big. I already have a number 1. That's the big issue out of that run. So nothing big to have to check off, but I just need to snag some up.
Nice. Yeah, it's just it's not a big run. I mean, it's one of those ones like 50 issues, something like 60 issues, I think.
Yeah, it's not even that much. It's like 52, 53, something like that.
Yeah, definitely not large. All right, so we're gonna get into the big questions, the money questions. Really, that is really the interpretation at this stage. Is there anything big that you're hunting this year? Or did any of you make a list that you were specifically targeting for the year, or a general list that you're specifically targeting, other than just I have these holes in my collection? So like these are the ones I'm going after. And we'll start with Bill, Comic Mag Musings.
I did. So I did a top 21 books that I'm hunting for 2021. I did a video on that, and for Alex Big Blue's 350 sub contest, he asked for 5 books that you were looking for this year. So I did an additional 5 that were different from those original 21. Most of the ones that I have on those lists are Golden Age, like Chilling Tales, number 14. A couple Crime Suspense, 22. Obviously, I mentioned that one. Number 20, which is the suicide cover. Some Shock Suspense. Might have been a Frontline Combat on there. Silver Surfer 1 and 4.
Always favorites.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure that I'll be able to swing those. And some like Crimes by Women. There are a couple good covers there. Any of the horrific covers, the Don Heck covers, any of those. But I think I said number 3 on one of mine. So mainly Golden Age, Pre-Code Horror, EC.
Right on. I was going through my I was going through my Gerber guides for the Golden Age the other day.
They're fantastic, aren't they?
They really are. I have a video on them going through it with Man Cave, and it really does kind of open your eyes to the quality of art that was available back then. Because this isn't stuff that you're going to see very often. You're not going to walk into your comic shop and just thumb through Golden Age books, unless you have a really good comic shop that's specific to that. And please put that in the chat or in the comments later so the rest of us can get access to that. But Crimes by Women had such great covers.
They did.
It's such a terrible title.
I think that's what's part of what's great about it. I mean, when you got gun malls out there, it's so period specific. It's just awesome. Love it.
It is but it is really a good series, of books. I mean, I don't know about the stories, but the covers were fantastic, and I was just really kind of caught by it. I was like, wow, these are look like something that would be really interesting to get. Yeah,
for me, most of the Golden Age that I look at, I would suspect most Golden Age buyers are cover buyers. They're not necessarily buying for the stories. So I would say I've read most of the EC, which are really, really good. Especially their horror. I think their horror titles were better written than any before or since. Their war titles may be rivaled by Blazing Combat by Warren, which was only 4 issues. But to me, the writing on those were just up there. And some of the Lev Gleason stuff was written pretty well too. But aside from that, for me, they're generally cover buys. And yeah, they had some fantastic covers. I love those Gerber books. I only have the Golden Age ones. I think they made 2 Marvel, and they were going to make 2 DC, but they never did. But I did a live stream on A through J or something like that. I did a live stream with one, went through it, and did a live stream with the other one through it. Yeah, they're fun. You could just while away the time looking at covers and wishing you had some of those in your collection.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Longbox, same question.
Well, I don't collect the Golden Age stuff yet, but I do love the horror comics. I love the EC cover. I mean, I always have told myself, I was like, once I complete the Silver Age books that I want, that'll be next. We'll see how long that takes to get to.
I've been saying the same thing. I hate to stop you. I've been saying the same thing, and it's just one of those things where it's like you watch. Maybe if you're watching the market right now, and it's like I'm like, maybe I should start picking these up while they're available before they become significantly out of price ranges. Because you look at like the GPA values on some books, like you'll take a look at it, right? You'll do your review of what you think the grade might be or what they think the grade might be and the price, and you go on to GPA and well, that grade isn't there, right? And like the last one was sold in like 2006.
Yeah.
So like, the price is just way out of, and everybody's just kind of throwing darts and blindfolded trying to figure out the prices on these.
That's the tough part for those. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a fair value?
But I'm sorry, please continue.
Well, so the question I think was, what are we looking for right now, right?
What's your specific hunting goals this year?
Yeah, so I don't have a list necessarily. I sort of do. I have on my phone, in the notes section, I just put, some things that I'm looking at, or it's sort of a stream of consciousness, like of what's striking me at that moment. And when I'm going into a con, what do I want to look for that specific day? Lately I've been looking for like Daredevil 1 and 2, but those are getting super crazy. I'm looking for some Fantastic Four keys. I never thought maybe 5 years ago that I was into Fantastic Four, and actually I had some of the older ones and I sold them off, and I kind of regret that. And so I'm looking back at specific ones that I want to bring into my collection. Last weekend I bought the first Molecule Man for $30. It's a beater, but it was $30, and so that popped into my hand. So I'm just looking at that Fantastic Four, Avengers, keys. A little bit Doctor Strange. I've gotten a little bit more into Doctor Strange recently than I would have thought. Of course, his first appearance is kind of the one to get, but that's a little pricey.
So true.
So I'm just looking to see where are those like key appearances of characters that I like, that I want to bring into the collection, because I feel a little less pressure because, well, not to keep saying it, but I finished the ASM run. I finished X-Men, so I did for the most part. But I don't feel like it's a ticking bomb to like complete the other runs. It's just if I can find them at a good deal, I'll pounce at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's we're all trying to find a good deal, and we're trying to go to places that aren't just going to just take advantage of the market and triple their price, on a book, and they're okay with it because they know it's going to sell at some point soon, right? Which is, it's that shift, right? Like it's a seller's market now. Before it was a buy, for the last 10, 15 years, it's really been a buyer's market, for that matter. But the last 2, and through this pandemic and with the new money flooding into the industry, it's now it's definitely a seller's market. And I'm glad I've been sitting on this Silver Edge collection that I've had for 3 years. I'm like, now it's time to unload. To start claim sale coming.
It's a good time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Lasso.
So I did put a list together of my top 12 goals for 2021. I did that last year too. I found that really helps me, just staying a little more focused. And I try to not just make it a Wonder Woman list. I try for the most part maybe just to put one in there and then expand upon that. For example, a book that's pretty high on my list that I'm hoping to get this year is a book that all through last year, I just saw this book everywhere, and I never really thought much of it until I kept seeing it everywhere. But that's Lois Lane 70, the first Silver Age Catwoman. And everywhere, every video I watch, someone either just bought it or it's in the background behind them.
Right.
I watch people shooting footage at conventions, and they're going past booths, and I see that book on the wall, and it's just everywhere. And I'm starting to think that maybe I should have bought it last year, but that is a goal for this year too. Is one that I'm trying to knock off the list. But I also realize that sometimes books just come around and you're not expecting them. And I try to make my list very realistic. I would love to put All-Star number 8 on my list, but that's not realistic that I'm going to pick that up, especially this year. Just not very realistic.
No,
but I do know that some books
selling a house profit money for that kind of book,
Yeah, exactly. But some books, sometimes they just at that moment come into your world, and you have to take advantage of that moment. And there's been times that I didn't. I could do an entire show of over everything that I should have bought that I didn't, that I regret so much right now. But a great example of that is what was going to be number 1 on my list this year was going to be Justice League number 9, the first origin of the JLA. It shows them as trees on the cover, and I've always, since being a little kid, and that issue had been referenced so many times in panels and flashbacks and stuff, and I'm like, I want to have that book. I just want to own that book. And that was going to be my 2021 goal, is to finally get that book. Well, back in the fall, quite unexpectedly, some money drops in my lap, and it's almost to the dollar enough money to get that Justice League number 9 in a high grade.
Wow.
And I'm like, I see that sign right there, and boom, that's where that money went. I wasn't expecting or counting on this money. That's exactly where it went. So I scooped that up right then and there, and I'm happy. It's not even my oldest Justice League, but that is just the one that I wanted to say that I had in my collection.
No, that's a great book. It really is.
I'll need that money back, Ryan, when you get a chance, by the way.
that will be in installments.
Just see Bill, Comic Mag Musings. Comic book loans are us.
Yeah. I'll pull out rabbit ears. That's what I'm good at.
The show.
When my Dazzler collection, when my Dazzler lot sells for that huge money, since it's a seller's market now, then I'll have the money for you.
Right. We're waiting for Dazzler to get announced for the MCU. We're all going to sell out for collections.
Well, the sad part is Dazzler was, had a cameo in the last X-Men movie, and it still did nothing for her. So
nobody knew who it was.
Yeah.
Except for
we need Taylor Swift as Dazzler. Taylor Swift as Dazzler will make my Dazzler collection.
She's not quite disco enough, I'd have to say. But who am I to judge, right? I mean, I've never been a fan of some of the people that they've put into these movies so far. I mean, MCU's done a great job, no doubt. But
yeah,
Fantastic Four, we'll let that go for another show. You know what? I want to actually open the floor up to the chat. I'm loving the questions you guys have been throwing out. Please, by all means, if you have questions for the panel, drop them in there. And gentlemen on the panel, if you have questions for each other, something you'd like to know, I think it would be that'd be a great opportunity to.
I have a question for Longbox.
Absolutely.
So, no surprise there. I've been watching your channel for so long, but what was the first book that you bought slabbed, and why did you decide that you like slabs versus raw copies?
Well, let me just maybe talk about that last part. I don't know if I like one over the other necessarily. I mean, I don't slab. I mean, for all of my collection, it's a very small percentage of my collection that is slabbed, and I'm not seeking to slab everything. Probably the first one I bought slabbed. Well, the first one I slabbed myself was Weapon X #1, the Aspen Wolverine Michael Turner variant. It was a book that I knew was 9.8. It's it better be 9.8. I think this is 9.8. Let me try it out. I took it to a con. I tried it out with them, and it came back to me 9.8. And at that same con, the first book I got slabbed was my X-Men #1. And the reason I got it slabbed is Stan Lee signed it. So my original thoughts for slabs were to just get the signature validated. And so that I didn't have to prove that it was a fake, that CGC verified that. Because before then, I never had anything autographed. And so Stanley was my first autograph, and he was really my first slab, I guess you could say. I bought that X-Men 1 slabbed. I cracked it, got him to sign it, and then I slabbed it myself. So I guess that would be my first slab.
Cool. Bill, what was your first slab?
That was so long ago. It's probably like right when they first came out, maybe. I think it was Invaders #1. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was my first one.
What about you?
And I got lots of raw too, right? I probably got like 15,000 raw books and maybe 1,000 slab. So I don't have all slabs, but as far as like what I'm trying to collect, I do want them all certain grade and slab. By the way, D-Runk asked someone to say hi to J Hood. So hi, J Hood from D-Runk Comics. I'm not going to get to be on slab. Good luck.
Well, Lasso, you were going to say something?
Jimmy, what was yours? What was your first slab?
Oh, my first slab I ever bought was Suicide Squad #23 in a 9/8. It's the first appearance of Oracle, because I'm a huge Batgirl fan, and I liked her, as Oracle through the Birds of Prey stuff. That run was fantastic. The Greg Land art was great. So yeah, I came across that, got a good price on it, and bought it. So that was the first slab I ever owned, and it's still on display in my office to this day. And the first books I ever personally had slabbed, and this is kind of a fiasco, was I had gotten really sweet copies of Batman 251 and 232, and I took them to C2E2 to have Neil Adams sign them. And he was actually the person who remarked, like, these are really nice looking. You should probably have these graded. I was like, oh, okay. Paid my $50, had him sign it, and then walked over to the CGC booth and turned him in. Of course, he didn't say anything about, maybe you should have that guy over there witness the book, and then, guess it's not his job. Got my 50.
He's done that before. I was at the CGC booth in Denver, and someone came up. This guy that's a seasoned collector. He had like a great run of X-Men or older Batman Neil Adams, and they were already signed. He's like, here you go. I want these to be slabbed, and like, well, they're not going to get the signature verification, and so Neil does this.
I love Neil. I love his work, and I love the history and what he's done for the just the medium in general. But sometimes.
Here.
Yeah. I actually today just got a replacement copy of Tomb of Dracula #1, super nice high grade copy, to replace the high grade copy that he tore the top edge of the cover on when he was handing it back to me after signing it, which now has an 8.5. So I was a little disappointed in that. I mean, the shock on my face that the CGC witness was like, "Oh, he's going to kill him." I was like, "Ah."
Did he acknowledge that at all, or?
Hey,
he didn't even realize he did it, because he like turned it to pick it up and hand it back, and coughed at the same time, and then just rubbed his thumb over the top edge of the book and split it. And I was just like, and I don't want to be one of those guys that just kind of goes off on somebody at a con, but I was really upset when I left. Yeah.
So Jimmy, do you do a lot of signatures?
I don't. So 2 years ago, I went signature crazy, right? And it was just, I'm at a con, I'm doing signatures for myself, I'm doing signatures for customers, I was doing facilitation, and I went signature crazy, and I spent a gang of cash on signatures and the signature series stuff and everything. And I'm like, looking back, and I'm like, okay, this didn't really increase the value of the books that much. I do like the stuff that I had signed, right? Like I had Crisis on Infinite Earth 7 signed by Wolfman and Perez. I had Teen Titans 2 signed by Wolfman and Perez. I did find that on the modern books, when they're signed by the artists, that typically tends to definitely increase the value of the book. So I got into the habit of like, I'll go and I'll get like a handful of Jenny Frizzens that I know will be 9/8 or Art Germ or anybody like that, and I'll have them sign them and I'll slab them. Maybe I'll keep one or two that I really like, and then I'll sell the rest. So I go from $2, $4 cost on a book, plus the cut fee, the signature fee and all that kind of stuff, and then I wound up making probably still a $60 profit on the book. So it became lucrative for me from that point. But yeah. I don't have a lot of. I think I'd say I have like one BCW bin full of signed books, and it's just like a range of things. People like Eric Bixaldwa, who does amazing cover work. Ebos, he's also known as Mark Silvestri, Neil Adams. I have a number of Neil Adams signed books. Just sometimes, I'm interested in it. Sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
What about the rest of you guys? Do you guys do a lot of signature series? I'm sorry, you.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just asking everybody, about that same question. Is anybody else, go get a lot of?
I'm an autograph fan and an autograph collector. I have some signed books. I don't have anything that's CGC signature signed or anything. That's going to be a future goal of mine too. Probably it was 2 years ago at C2E2, which was probably the same convention as yours. I went pretty signature crazy at that time too. 4 hours and 50 minutes in line for George Perez. But it was worth it.
Line, wasn't it?
It was rough, and but it was worth it. The experience was so good once you got there. That I was happy, and this tells you how tunnel visioned I was. Even at that was right around the time that I really started expanding outside of Wonder Woman stuff. This is how, and I'll say it so you guys don't have to say it. This is how stupid I was. Okay, now I knew someone like George Perez is going to have a huge line. This is his first appearance after announcing his essentially farewell tour. Fine. I'm thinking to myself, well, I really love Jenny Frizz stuff. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a long wait. That was like 2 people deep. And I walked up. And then me being as dumb, I'm like, this Art Germ guy, he's kind of good. He's got this Wonder Woman cover I like. I'll just be able to walk up and get that signed. But I did get it done, and that's what counts. So I love signatures. I'm an autograph fan of I've been an autograph fan for a long time, even outside of mediums of comic books, musicians and stuff too. And I actually like mine personalized to my name. And I know a lot of people don't like that, and there's no resale in that. I'm not interested or worried about the resale. I love that. And out of my autograph collection outside of comic books, I don't know. My favorite autograph is actually a CD insert that was done by Dolly Parton, Tammy Wynette, and Loretta Lynn. They did an album together. I have it signed and personalized by all 3. Wow. I like that. I like my Garth Brooks a lot. But having a personalized Madonna autograph that's signed to my name, she doesn't like to sign at all to start out with, let alone to personalize something to someone's name. That was a pretty big deal.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So I think I'm going to try and close the gap with this last question. What is it that you focused on this year that you have achieved so far? Right, we're 3 months in. You knocked anything off the list? We'll start with Bill.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple books. It's hard because sometimes I'll get books and I'll just put them in the other room, and sometimes they'll be there for 4, 5, 6 months until I bring them out for an unboxing video. So I've truly forgotten what's in what box or what I have, so it can be a true mystery unboxing. So that does make it a challenge, but I think I've gotten San Diego Comic-Con #2. That was one that was on the list.
That's on my list as well. Actually, I have it centered on. I have it. I'm just waiting for it to show up.
Yeah,
that's a big book, though.
What else? Oh, I got Weird Science Fantasy 29. Shout out to DS. It was during a Golden Guys show that he mentioned that this particular copy was on eBay. I checked it out, and it was a really good looking copy, and so snagged it. It's in there unopened somewhere. I got it like a month or 2 ago. So
You got like
I
a
think
pack of
those two.
packages back there, like Discovery Bay, right? Just
Yeah, there's another
Which
room
number?
that's just filled with boxes. And
That's what the curtain's for, so people don't see the stack of books that you bought and you haven't opened yet.
So yeah, there might be one or two others that I just can't remember.
Oh wait, hang on, is it that one? Yeah. I think it's out of spite at this point, Jackson. Longbox.
All right, so I've actually had some really good success this year. They're sitting in front of me, so I'm going to show them. So speaking of upgrades, I was able to upgrade my Fantastic Four 48.
Banger.
Nice.
It has a grease paint or whatever.
I think that's from the same collection that Biggie just got. Oh my God, he showed a big book today. It's a gigantic 6 right in the front cover.
Yeah. So I think it's an upgrade. I have a 4.0, but it's restored. So I wanted an unrestored copy before it got too crazy. And then I picked up The Origin of Black Panther.
First Claw.
And then with my Daredevil stuff, was able to get this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had some good luck. And then last year, I ordered this, and 10 months later, this arrived with the Jim Lee autograph and sketch. So
that's a hell of a remark.
Yep.
Yeah. So
wow.
I sent away for this in June, and it came back 2 weeks ago. So
it may have just been in his queue that long to do the remark.
Well, it was also like in the middle of all the DC upheaval late last year, and I sent it to by Rocket Comics, and it was supposed to be colored and inked, so inked by Scott Williams and colored by Alex Sinclair. But apparently, whatever Jim drew, they did very minimal stuff to it, so they just refunded me the fee, and they didn't even sign it. I guess they felt their contribution was so minor. And I'd wanted this remark for a while. I was glad to be able to achieve that in the pandemic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That is one very cool remark.
Yeah. And I think I'm done with Jim Lee now.
What's that? You're done with Jim Lee now?
Done with Jim Lee. I have a couple sketches from him. I have some signed books. I think I can move on.
I'm working up towards getting an OA page of his, but I'm on the hush about that right now.
Very nice.
Because if not, I'll never get it, I'm sure.
Someone will snipe it.
Right. I've had that happen. I've actually had that happen. I talked about a Journey into Mystery 83 to somebody at a store, and it was no longer there when I came back. Yeah, it was very disheartening, especially after
a sad story.
It was a very sad story. Because I'm like, like that book just shot back up in price right afterwards, and I was just like, oh. So a little bit of misery on that. How about you, Lasso?
Yeah, I've already got, I think, 4 or 5 books from my top 12 list. I'll be showing those on my channel soon. It's nothing huge or insane. Maybe one of the bigger, nicer ones is the first Monica Rambeau and ASM annual. So
yeah, did you get it slabbed or raw?
Raw.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to slabbing, not at all. But these are raw. So one other thing that I got really lucky for is I love if I can find a foreign edition comic book, even though I can't read it, but if it has a different cover than what the US version had.
Yeah.
And though the very first Wonder Woman comic book that I ever remember owning was 245. And I found a French edition of 245 that has a complete different cover than the US. And I was able to snag that this year. And it really wasn't all that expensive either. The splash page of the story is what they turned and made into the cover instead. So, and it's totally different than what the cover looked like. So I was really happy.
If only you had a buddy in Austria that could help you with
this.
If
only I knew someone in Austria,
right? If only we all knew somebody in Austria. Actually, the Spider-Man Mexican variants, though, I think are really cool.
I'd love to have one of those.
There's changes to the stories in them too, so like, you gotta be on the lookout for those.
Yeah, I would love to have one of those. So, but yeah, so far it's been pretty fruitful and successful for the new year.
So, what are the other books that you got? You got.
Oh gosh, I got
16. What else?
Yeah, I got that Marvel graphic novel with Dazzler, real high grade on that. That was a pedigree. I got that. I got a Justice League, a Silver Age Justice League that I really wanted. And I'm blanking right now. Why am I blanking? I know I got another Marvel book. It just escapes me now off the top of my head. So
fair enough. Right on. All right, so. I'm out of questions, gentlemen. You guys have done such a great job with answering them, and we've actually ended in a shorter time. But that's not to say that we haven't covered a lot of content. You guys are very to the point, and I appreciate. Wait, Bill, did you get
what better on a What Do You Hunt show?
Oh, absolutely, sir.
Right?
Oh yeah. No, you're getting center stage here.
All right, let's do this.
Your list for the year, or is this Jackson Roykirk's gift from 2 years ago?
No, that one had something hissing in it, and so I left that with the FBI. He'll be hearing from them shortly. So I don't know. I have no idea what this is. Probably not something from my hunt list, but we'll see. Made for right-handers. So
yeah.
I'll use this.
Did anybody else watch 84's unboxing yesterday and was concerned about him cutting himself?
I'm always concerned when he unboxes things. If he doesn't drop something 5 or 6 times, then
he legitimately looked like he was going to open up a vein yesterday. I was like, whoa! I just watched it today. Was it last night or was it this morning? I can't tell.
It's the old bag inside a box trick.
Hey, free bubble wrap, man.
All right. Wow. This thing's packed pretty well.
I'm going to cut through that brick of Coke, and it's just going to be a white powder mist.
This might be from Jackson, and there's nothing inside of it. All right. Yeah, he's talking about my my last desert unboxing. That one took forever. So I started a series. I don't know if you want to call them a series, but I thought it'd be a good idea to do unboxings on location. So I'd go hike in the desert, take a box out with me, and at some point stop and do the unboxing. The last one, he said that the hungry coyotes and wolves got so bored they left because it took forever to unbox it. All right, now we finally got it, I think.
That thing is packed.
Wow. All right, so let's see what we got. You guys can see it first.
Yeah.
All right, so not something off of my hunt list, something off of my run list.
Is that issue 1 or is that?
Now this is number 3, Khazar or Khazar number 3.
Very nice.
From Short Box, I think I got this one from.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that is it. All that work for Khazar. But I did need it for the run.
So are you getting that run slabbed, or did you just happen to find that?
Yeah, all the ones that I'm collecting, I'll get them all slabbed.
Now, are you getting?
So that's why it's probably taken me since 1990, and I still only completed like 1 or 2.
Are you getting all those with the same grade, 9.4?
No.
Is it
9.2 usually or higher?
So 9.2 or higher? Okay, that makes sense.
Nice.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. I want to thank Old Wolf for showing up finally. And appreciate all of you guys and the time, giving up your time. And I do appreciate and respect that because I know it's not always easy, especially you, Longbox, for the short notice. I just a little bit out of it for the last couple of weeks. Just had to take a little bit of a break. We were on a pretty heavy tear, going 3 every 2 weeks. But yes, thank you all for coming. And I'm going to try and get another one of these shows scheduled up soon. The well ran dry a little bit on guests, but I've got to go back and start looking for a new crop to bring in. Especially like people that a lot of people haven't either heard from or talked to in the past on the subject, and keep some more engaging shows. So thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you, chat, and we'll have a good night.
Good night, everybody.